Breaking into the music business is a unique journey for everyone, but the love of music and the culture is the connecting tie. These are the untold stories of how Canada's most prominent Black entertainment professionals got started in an industry that never sleeps. I'm Jesse Jones, and welcome to Season 2 of AMPLIFY. Starting a journey in the music industry can feel like an impossible path to pursue. One that tests the limits, pushes boundaries, and demands unwavering resilience at every turn. But it's that resilience, that burning desire to create and express and keep pushing through despite the setbacks, that propels the journey forward. This season, we follow the extraordinary paths of 8 talented guests. From childhood beats to industry feats, we examine how they got their start. For Vivian Barclay, Managing Director of Warner Chappell Music Canada, she was born into a world where music and life were one and the same.
I was born into music, so I always joke to people, it's not a joke, it's a reality. My dad was a working musician, my mom was a painter. I don't know any other life, literally. My dad was on tour from the day I was born. I literally don't know any other life. I grew up in a nightclub. I was in nightclubs when I was 2. My mom ran front of house. My dad was on stage every night. I don't know any other life. I never had parents that were like, when are you going to be a lawyer or a doctor? I only had parents that said, did you play the piano today? Did you paint today? I've been doing music my whole life. I've played piano since I was 6. I've been in orchestras. My first gig, I guess you could say that was more entertainment related, would have been working for Sandals in the entertainment department, which literally requires you to set up equipment all day, host shows every night, sing and dance every night. I don't really know any other life, to be honest. And then I have a degree in radio and TV and audio production. So I don't actually know anything else. I mean, I probably make a good lawyer, my mom claimed, but I just don't know if I want to do the work it takes, and we can hire good ones.
And just like Vivian, Grammy-nominated producer Quest ignited his flame through the profound musical influence of his parents. Fate led him to realize that someone had to take the role of producer, and it was going to be him.
The way I found my passion for music was definitely through my parents. Growing up, my mom was very big in the church. She used to sing in church choir, but she was also like a wedding singer. So as a kid, people would hire her to sing, and I remember just being there and being so bored because we were young, so we didn't really understand what was going on. And for us as kids, we're like, I just want to go home. I want to go play. But being in that space and seeing her be in her element, it was like so inspiring. And then my dad and my uncles, they were DJs. So just seeing them in that space and really understanding the way music kind of worked with each other and just understanding how to blend music, or how to take this song and put this song together, or how do you get these two spaces to sound unison and put it in a way that people can appreciate. So all these things really piqued my interest and intrigue for music. And as I got older, I just was like, okay, you know what? This is what I want to do. I want to be an artist. So I went down that path and kind of started that way. And then naturally, by necessity, I kind of fell into the space of production because the people that I was working with at the time, none of us really understood how that worked. So it was like, okay, well, someone's got to learn it. So I kind of picked that up, and then just naturally was like, you know what? Yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I can't thank my parents enough, because I know a lot of my peers and like even family, because my background, I'm from Ghana, West Africa. So the idea of a pursuit in the arts is very uncommon. It's not traditional. It's not really the safe way to go. Most parents are like, become a doctor, become a lawyer, become a teacher or whatnot. But my parents were like super supportive.
Hollywood, on the other hand, braved many nights sleeping in coat check to take on the role of dancer and choreographer, drawing inspiration from his mom.
I was born in Calgary, moved to Edmonton, and my mom and her collective of friends were responsible for bringing a lot of like DJs and the culture to Alberta. And it was wild to watch. I spent many a night sleeping in coat check while they were partying, but it informs so much of who I am, because I was sleeping, but one eye was open, and I was like, what's going on over here? So like, I think being in that environment has definitely influenced who I am as a person, and like my love for music and my love for dance and my love for community and culture. And it was an interesting time because it was like living two different lives. It was like at home, we were Black. Like, I was eating rice and peas every Sunday, and I'd go to school and there would be two other Black people, and like there was literally 3 Black people in my elementary school, and my sister was one of them. So, you know what I mean? It was culturally very different. But again, I think that has helped shape who I am as a person, because I can go into any space and acclimate myself into these spaces because nothing feels completely foreign to me. And if it does, I'm willing to like listen, digest, and figure out what works for me and what doesn't, and lean into that.
For Canada's queen of R&B, Jully Black, music is in her genes. But in her hands, it's a gift to be used wisely, a catalyst for healing, inspiration, and boundless joy.
My late sister Sharon introduced me to music in general. She was a painter, a triathlete. She's everything that I am today, except that I'm not a triathlete yet. Now that I cut my hair, I might jump in the water still. But to be open, music was always playing in my household while my siblings were doing visual arts and fashion. Something happened in the chromosomes where I got the music gene like nobody else. My entire family's a musician. But I will say that they had me at church since I was a baby. And so I've always been kind of immersed in the music and in the power of worship. And I say that to say, I knew at a very young age that music is healing, that music is language, and that you could use music whether you are, while you're wounded. Like, I just have to say this, like there was a lot of wounded worship. And, there was a lot of pain in my household, in my church, in my community, but there was also a lot of praise. So I watched as a little girl, 6, 7 years old, I watched people like go from one stage where you could feel it's like a visceral pain, and moments later could feel their emotions and feel the healing just by like closing their eyes and worshiping and giving thanks to their God. So, Mom played a big role. Mom found God in her own way later in life. Like, she was raised Christian like most people, but she also had church hurt. She also had her heart broken from, the church community at a certain time in her life, but she always made sure that we had the fundamentals and that we were rooted in the word. At the end of the day, it's that great book. She just says, just use it for what it's, for the teaching more so than the religion, right? If it's do unto others as you want them to do unto you, then how are you going to do unto others? If it's love thy neighbor as thyself, then are you loving yourself? Some people were focusing on loving the neighbor. And so I think that's why I've always been so charismatic and so confident, because it was like pounded into me, Drew, you have to love yourself. Walk with your womb, you're a woman. Walk with your womb forward, shoulders back, like everything, my posture, my ability to tune a room, to set the tone, to be present. Like my mom would say, Drew, the same electricity you use to boil an egg as the same electricity they use to kill a man. And it was like, phew. So I said, okay. She knew that I had power, so it's up to me to use it wisely.
So what are some of the pivotal moments paving the evolution for our other guests? It took a harmonious collision with music to unlock MJ's authenticity. The host of Pure Country Radio was always searching for the perfect outlet for her true self.
Going back to my childhood, as it relates to music, is a very personal exploration of what made me who I am today. It's engraved in my soul because it was what saved me a lot of times, where it was always playing. My parents are very, my dad, he loved all kinds of music. He liked every Sunday, it was Sunday cleaning day, and he would pull out, his records, and he never cleaned, but he had the music going. It was like the soundtrack for, and I loved cleaning the house to the music, whatever. It was Bob Marley, Led Zeppelin. He would always have the guitar out trying to, emulate the best guitar riffs and things like that. So there was always music in the house. But for me, it was an escape. I was the only child. And so, through, parents arguing and fighting and always conflict, music was a way to just disappear into whatever world I was being, or whatever world the artist was creating, or even sometimes it was just music, the sound of it. So very early on, I learned that music was a way to escape. Then it became not a way to escape, but I almost want to describe it as it described who I was or who I was becoming. If I was lost and didn't know, what am I going to do here, or, how do I survive this, or, music became the guide. Whether it was hip hop, whether it was, heart. I loved heart. The story songwriters, even country, like wherever I could draw inspiration from, I just was absorbing it all.
Beni Johnson, the man behind the go-to hip-hop platform in Calgary, 10 at 10 Music and Culture, took his first tentative steps at a grade 6 talent show. And in that moment, a teacher's words of encouragement set his world ablaze with new possibilities.
Part of the music, I think, is part of my identity. So I remember grade 6, there was a talent show that was being talked about in school and in class, and the teachers wanted us to do something. And the most epic movie of all time just dropped, Space Jam. And they just dropped Hit 'Em High. So the guys were like, yo, we should do Hit 'Em High. So of course, during Hit 'Em High, I had the LL Cool J part, lightning strikes, big moment in the song. And I remember doing that in the talent show in the big gymnasium with all the kids and the teachers. And after our performance, I had teachers come up to me and be like, you should consider doing this for real. And again, as a kid in a small town where that's not even really a thing, it was a weird thing to get pulled aside to see. And I'm like, you know what? Let's see what this looks like. And I think in just doing that talent show, emulating what hip hop was, it started to give me a sense of identity. And that's kind of where things start playing around down the line from there.
An unexpected chance with Sony Music's street team set Carey Riley, Sony Music Canada's marketing director, on a journey behind the scenes.
I had grown up in a household where my father had performed and toured for pretty much all of my childhood and had witnessed, things from behind the scenes. Never wanted to stand in the spotlight, never wanted to necessarily be a part of it because it really did feel like a bit of a circus. My sister always would say she's going to be the singer. I always smiled and laughed. It was like, okay, cool. And, as I grew up, I think that I kind of got further introduced into what other opportunities outside of being in front of the microphone were, because I had a better understanding of what those things were behind the scenes. And in being exposed to it, I kind of was like, this is interesting. I don't know necessarily if I ever thought of it as a career until I was approached in high school to become a part of a street team, where I was like, what is that? And why do I need to? And I kind of still shied away from it. But, it intrigued me enough to say that I wanted to hear more about it before I made a decision as to what that meant for me.
While Carey had no intention of basking in the spotlight, Hollywood spotlight began in the heart of his third grade classroom.
I remember being in elementary school, feeding the extension cord out the window before recess, and then taking the tape deck from class and bringing it outside and lining all my girlfriends up and being like, okay, we're dancing to SWV, and it goes right, left, open, clap. You're wrong. Do it again. Like, I'm in grade 3. I'm in the third grade, bossing everybody around, feeding cables. It was It was crazy, but I didn't know how to take it beyond the people that I knew. And I made this friend in elementary school. It was like in the 7th grade. Her name is Latoya Webley. And she moved to my school from the West End, and she looked at me and said, we're going to be friends. And I said, who is this girl? Why is she bossing me around? She knew people who did things, and she's like, hey, they're having auditions for Junior Raptors Dance Pack. And I'm like, all right. So we go to the Junior Raptors Dance Pack audition, and we book it. And so I started dancing in Junior Raptors Dance Pack, and it all just pretty much snowballed from there. Like the guy who was doing Junior Raptors Dance Pack, his name was Martin, and Martin was like, hey, I'm doing this thing over here. And like it in a weird way, I started networking in the 7th grade.
In a world where curiosity holds the key to unlocking hidden truths, our guests dared to question the boundaries that confined them. Beni's passion for uncovering the unknown watered the seeds of his creativity.
I had this homie of mine, like, in the beginning of the internet era. I'm dating myself here. But, yeah, we just started doing graphic design, web design together. And then we started downloading these, like, audio programs because we needed to do some stuff for our websites. And before you know it, we stumbled upon, like, instrumentals and, like, just have, like, songs that we've heard around. But now there's instrumentals that are available. So those seeds started to get sowed by just him challenging me to record some music on my computer. And didn't have a microphone or anything like that, but we figured out you can stick your headphone in the microphone jack, and one of the sides was a microphone. So from there, it was like starting to hear your voice back, and it's like, that sounds kind of cool. So that was kind of my beginning of like staying, I like doing this, I want to be involved in this in some kind of way, I want to create a song for myself, yeah.
Carey's unwavering curiosity about the street team thrust her into a pivotal meeting, shedding light on the untapped potential of a woman's voice.
It was wild. I say that just simply because of the fact that there was very few women on the team. And I was kind of brought in from the stance of like, okay, I was in high school and I was kind of all over the city going to different events and being seen by one person that was like on a team, and he kept on asking me, okay, I've seen you everywhere. You got to be in this. Like, there's got to be a way for us to work together. And I had no idea what he was talking about. Shout out to Sin. He kept on asking me over and over again, you got to meet my boss. You got to come out and you got to talk to him. And when he did introduce me to him, it was Saul Guy. And I was kind of like, still don't know what this is, but they ushered me and a friend of mine that I had voluntold was going to come with me to find out more information about what he was trying to get me involved with. And we sat down in a boardroom, and like maybe 15, 20 minutes later, 112 walks in, and I was kind of like, where am I? What am I doing here? Why? Who's his boss? What do they do? And from that moment forward, I think that's when I got bit by, the music industry bug and said, okay, this is something that I'm intrigued by, and this is something that I really think that I could do, and that's talk about music, share, my music influences with others, and be able to do that in such an authentic way, like peer-to-peer, and trying to also push the boundary in those conversations early on to say there wasn't other girls in the room outside of the friend that I brought. And being like, okay, wait, there's room for us in this space. And it shouldn't just be a male voice promoting these artists. And, that's when I pulled in, one of my friends at the time, Joanne as well, Joanne Marcano, and said, hey, like, there's an opportunity. And she was pushing on me already to be like, I want in. But it was like, okay, let's try and create a narrative that includes our voices instead of just being these kind of idols in these videos, like shaking your ass.
Carey found support in Sid and Saul Guy, while Quest found support from his dad.
I remember having this conversation with my dad when he was like, hey, so what do you want to do? Do you want to go to college? And I said, I don't think I want to go to school. He was like, what do you mean? And I said, I want to just do music full time. Like, I feel like this is what I want to do. And I remember he just sat there for a minute, and then he looked at me and he said, as long as you can pay your bills, go for it. And it's been that ever since. And I've never looked back. Like, I ended up going to college. I went to college for marketing, which was far removed from music, but in a way, the two intertwine. And for me, I was just kind of looking at it like, well, I could go to school for music, but I feel like it's something that's a bit more innate. I feel like understanding business is something that's more tangible that I can hopefully somehow apply. And by the grace of God, I was able to. But yeah, it was just him giving me that reassurance that, hey, listen, as long as you can cover your bills, do what you need to do. And my parents have been supportive ever since.
Propelled by her mother's wisdom, Vivian left Jamaica and headed to Canada, where she landed a gig at a campus radio station fielding radio complaints.
I was open to the idea of production in general. And my mom said, you're born in Canada, because I was actually born here. I just didn't live here. And my mom was like, you're born in Canada. I think you should go back to Canada and go to school. And this was one of the few places in the world that you could actually get a radio and TV degree, like an actual degree. So I did come to what was formerly Ryerson TMU. I got a degree in radio and TV, and I decided to specialize in audio production. And again, when I got there, I thought I was going to do TV and make commercials all day. It was what I wanted to do. I guess the music side of me kind of prevailed, and I did a lot of audio for film and TV. So I was like, maybe I'll be a Foley artist and I'll sit around and bang plates together all day, and which sounded super fun, frankly. And then I ended up doing a final production that was more music based, which was, of course, kind of what I was doing. And at the time, the people the year before us were there were not a lot of Black people in the program. I think there were 5 of us in my year total. And then below us was people like Gemini and Aisha, and we all became friends. And at the time, Gemini was already at CKLN Radio at 88.1 hosting with X on Power Move. And she was like, hey, you should probably come over to the radio station and help us out. And I went over there and I started doing their production for them. So I was making all their radio commercials, doing all their drops, doing any of that kind of production for the radio. When I left Ryerson, I was teaching their first year. So I was teaching first year audio production. I was teaching first year radio while working at the radio station. So I was doing production at the radio station, and I was basically the ad hoc producer for the Power Move, only because every Monday morning I would come back to work and I would get a lot of phone calls from very angry parents who didn't like that DJ X played music with questionable language on a Saturday from 1 to 4. So I would spend half my time on Monday morning fielding phone calls from people going, we are going to complain to the CRTC. And I was like, oh God. So I just started hanging out at the show on Saturday so I could kind of regulate it myself.
Olivier Vander Zaag's story defies all odds and affirms that in the symphony of life, every note has its place. Transitioning from the humble roots of a farm to the intricate realm of politics, he found his true calling in the heart and soul of Music Canada.
I've been working in politics for about, I want to say 17 years. And I thought I would like to leave on my own accord. And how do we do this? And I knew back during this pandemic, everybody needed help, and I was working for the Ontario government at the time. And part of it was I was stakeholder relations, which really means you in the pandemic, you just talk to everyone because everyone needs help, and what do you need and how do you get what you need? One of those phone calls was to Patrick Rogers, the CEO of Music Canada. We got talking. I'd known him before working in politics. But he said, hey, you know what, if you ever think about it, we might need some of your skills in music. And at the time, it's just pandemic everything. I'm like, thank you. Like, that's a nice compliment, but, we're doing this. I can't even think about that right now. And then when I had time to think about it, I thought, well, maybe I'll give Patrick another call. And when he did, it's like, well, let's consider it. And then that's how it sort of ended up working at Music Canada and working for Patrick.
MJ dared to tap into the power of visualization and harness the energy of manifestation.
I always knew that music would be in some way a part of what I'd be doing, whether I'd be making a living out of it or not. And I think that the goal is when you're young and you have your microphone and it's a hairbrush in the mirror, you think, I'm going to be a singer and, maybe I'm going to write, right? When I was in a singer or songwriting phase and trying to learn the guitar, which I could not do. So I gave that up. But I always knew that music was going to be in some way a part of my life. And in knowing that, I believe I just manifested it. And it just found me. People would say probably I stumbled into the career in music. But now looking back, it was total manifestation. Total manifestation.
Find out what lies ahead for our talented protagonists as they navigate the complexities of the music industry. Discover how they overcome rejection and criticism and use their talents and grit to pave their way to success. Tune in to episode 2 of Amplify to uncover their triumphs, trials, and tribulations.